All right, welcome back for chapter 2, the reserves. So, you know how my time went in the regular army, and that time came to an end. And when I got out, like I said, I didn't really have a plan, so figured if I join the reserves, at least it gives me the ID card. I can get back on base, go to the gym, things like that. um, so that was the plan. I got out in August, and by December, I was in the reserves. Going into the reserves, pretty optimistic. Me and my cousin joined together, did the reserves thing together like we were going to do active duty. But this time we were able to actually do it. Signed up, and our first drill was in December. And like I said, we were optimistic, right? We just left active duty, kind of understood what that was about, looking for a new start and a new way. And lo and behold, we get there, and it was all right, in the start. Everybody was pretty cool. We were the new guys, right? It was a small unit. It was a detachment, Panama City, Florida. So if you've never been to Panama City, you know about Panama City, right? Legit place, good place. It was a party atmosphere back in the day. And, we used to go down 1 week in a month and, find somewhere to go, something to get into. We were young, probably early 20s, maybe 20 at the time. And just living life. Getting into the reserve thing, though, it kind of flushed out to be the same thing. We tried to apply ourselves. They didn't really want our help. And, we kind of, it's like, what's going on? Tried volunteering for things. Didn't want us to volunteer. Tried to be proactive. Didn't care. It started to seem like the same old thing. As time went on, the more we knew the people in the unit, the more we knew it was some BS, right? Like, you hear about the reserves, National Guard, and things like that, where it's a family type organization. Well, that was how this unit was. The first sergeant of the organization, like, his daughter was one of the squad leaders. Everybody was kind of family around there. They were pretty set on how they did things. And none of them really been active duty except maybe one. And he kind of understood, but he didn't really help. And, the more time went on, the less I wanted to go. And I remember one time, we went out and we stayed out late, and, we had PT the next morning. And, I told my cousin, I was like, man, I just need to rest my eyes for like 30 minutes, right? And 30 minutes turned into noon. And of course, they came looking for us, knocking on the doors and whatever. And we went in and obviously got cussed out. They demoted us, demoted me to like PFC, right? And I was like, that kind of crushed me. And, I refused to wear PFC. And I remember we had AT, which is the 2 weeks training that you do, right? 1 week in a month, 2 weeks a year. That was the 2 weeks. First AT. Like I said, we were part of a detachment that was in Panama City. So we had to go up to South Carolina where the main unit was, the actual company. Met everybody else, and then we went to our AT site where we were doing like training or whatever. But I walked around like a PV1, like a straight private. I didn't put my rank on, nothing. People were looking at me all crazy, like, you look pretty old to be a private. I was like, whatever, I'm good. And, the first sergeant at the time, this is a different first sergeant. This is the actual company first sergeant. She was like, why don't you wear your rank? You're a PFC, you should be wearing your rank. I was like, I don't want to wear it. Doesn't matter. Private's a private. And, she was like, well, we can make you a PV1 for real if that's what you want. you know, kind of called my bluff, if you will. And I was like, all right, whatever, I'll put it on. And, so I put the rank on or whatever, went about my business. We ended up, you know, a pretty tight group up there. The people up in South Carolina were really cool. Made a lot of great friends. Had a good time over those 2 weeks. Kind of instilled, the confidence in being in this unit in me again until we went home. When we went home, it was the same old BS, and I just decided to not go anymore. I was like, I think I went almost 6 months without ever going to another drill. And I was just dead set on like just getting out. It was that dumb. And, my cousin would call like, hey, you going this month? Nah. And then I even started getting calls from the unit like, hey, we'll promote you again if you just come back. I was like, I really don't care. All right, like, I don't want to get promoted. I don't care, about coming back. You people suck. Like, that's not the Army. It's not, what I was looking for. I'm good, and, my cousin, he was kind of upset. Like, man, I'm going through all this crap. I'm showing up. They ain't trying to promote me. Like, what the hell is going on? And, like, I don't know, man. I'm not going, and he used to go and try to force me to go. And I'm just like, I ain't getting up. I ain't going, because we used to have to get up at like 3 o'clock in the morning, drive an hour out to Panama City to be there, at PT by 6:30, find parking, whatever. And it wasn't a great time in my life. I was working construction, trying to survive. It was kind of hard to go up to drill, missing out on other money. I was in school doing technician certification for air conditioning. I was kind of living off GI Bill and, this job I had doing air conditioning in condos and stuff. So I needed the extra money, and, I made more going to school and work than I did as a PFC at drill, so I didn't go. And, the 9/11 thing happened, right? And everybody remembers where they were at in 9/11, right? Like, I was on the construction site, on the second story on my 9 o'clock break. And I was a smoker back then, smoking a Newport, right? And having a snack or whatever. And then we got word like, New York City was under attack, and everybody's trying to watch the little TV in the trailer, that we have on the construction site, and trying to see what's going on. And at that moment in time, everybody had that feeling like we're going to war. And, lo and behold, we got the call, right? Like, hey, the unit's activating. We're going to mobilize, go to Fort Stewart, Georgia, and we're deploying, so that kind of sparked me like, I need to go back. And I went back, and, during our train up, we left, we went to Fort Stewart. We met the rest of the company there, integrated. We got a bunch of new people in, like reserve units. They have to pull augmentations from, individual augmentations from different units to make one unit, right? Just because they don't have the manpower like that. So they would strip other units to build a unit that's deploying. They take volunteers and they call them individual augmentees. So we got all these random people into the company that we never met before. And our train up was like, I don't know, 90 days or so. So we had 3 months to prepare to go to war, right? In a reserve unit, no less. Which means we got new leaders in, all kinds of stuff, right? And we got a new platoon sergeant. And this dude comes in with this 80s friggin' mullet, right? Like, long mullet, you know. He was like, I was in Desert Storms the last time, you know. He was a reservist or whatever too, and smoked like a chimney, right? Fucking just smokeaholic. um and you know, he was saying all these promising things like, hey, you know, I like your style, I like the way, you know, you lead, I like the way people follow you, you know, the way you get things done, like you're proactive. You know, we're really going to need that over there because Desert Storm, right? And that's, you know, his thing. I was like, yeah, cool, you know, I'm ready. You know, by this time I was already giving specialists back, and they just kind of handed it, just, they were just like, put it on. But I was excited about getting promoted, right? Because we were we were active duty at the time. So it was like me and my cousin and maybe a few others who had been active duty kind of knew, you know, what the deal was. Like, we got to get on the ball. We got to be right. We got to be ready. Which means if we want things to change, right, we need to have the rank to change it. So I was very adamant about trying to get promoted and advance and move up in the ranks so I could take over a squad, this and that, and train my guys up right. So those promises were made. You know, we're gonna get you in there, get you involved. You know, you're gonna be one of the leaders in this platoon. We're really gonna look to you, you know, with your experience and stuff like that, to really help us out. Cool. I was excited. I was all in. And you know, the 3 months goes by and we're done with training, and we get our call. You know, and we loaded the buses, headed to Hunter Army Airfield, flew out, and landed in Kuwait in the middle of the night with no clue what to expect. Like, we had zero information, at least at my level, which wasn't very high, right? But was asking questions like, what the hell is going on? And you know, they're like, hey, you know, we're here, welcome to Kuwait City, blah blah blah. We don't know anything about Kuwait. You know, we weren't researching back in 2003, right? There wasn't, you know, the internet to understand if Kuwait was a hostile area or not, or, you know, were we in danger or not, or and at this time I was a saw gunner, and you know, which, whatever, I was cool with that. I like having a machine gun. I actually, through the rest of my career, I always kept a saw too. It was modified a little bit different than what I had to carry back then, but still the same effect. But you know, we get there and we get off the plane, and one of these NCOs, he was like a fat dude, you know, he thought he was like pretty much Tackleberry from Police Academy, right? Like, yeah, he was like the gear guy, right? He had all this wazoo shit. He gets off the plane and, you know, he's like low crawling around like, what the fuck is going on, right? And it's just ridiculous. And, you know, they put us in these little tents and huts, and, you know, the first thing we're asking is like, when do we get our ammo? Like, are we safe here? What's going on? Nobody's really telling us anything. They're just like, hey, this is your tent. You're gonna move around. You know, you'll get integrated, and then we'll put you on a bus and send you to wherever you need to be. It's the middle of the night. We're in a foreign country. Most of us never been in a foreign country, which I have, but not in that aspect, right? But most of these old boys, like, never been out of their state, you know, let alone halfway around the world into what we thought at the time was a war zone, which obviously later we understood that Kuwait was a safe haven after we got back, right? But we didn't understand that going up. And we spent a day or two there, integrating, getting our stuff. They put us on these little buses, blacked out windows, curtains, no AC. Like, it's Kuwait, it's hot. We got there February, March, April. Yeah, March or April. We got there, and they put us all the way up in Camp Pennsylvania. Camp Pennsylvania was one of the more forward little camps close to the border for crossing the berm is what they called it, into Iraq. And again, we didn't know that at the time either, that how close we were to the border, but they were like, hey, these sirens go off, you know, get low, right? And there's like scud warnings and things like that. And we show up and there ain't nothing there. You know, it's just a few tents, but mainly we're in the sand, right? And if you ever seen the movie Jarhead, that was Desert Storm, but that was also OIF1 when we first got there. Just showing up, you're in the dirt, and then eventually they start putting these tents up, like, I don't know, 60, 100 man size circus tents. But we were in the dirt. I was like, man, this is 2003. Like, this is 10 years after the fact, you know? And we're still living like they were in Desert Storm. That's crazy. We were there for a couple weeks before we crossed into the berm. We weren't, we weren't called up initially. We ended up deploying in with 4th Infantry Division, and along that route, and we went all the way up to Balad, LSA Anaconda at the time. And when we got up there, it was desolate, right? There was nothing there either. The only people that were there at the time were the fuelers. Everything was burnt out. It was super hot, you know, it was miserable. And essentially we were looking for a place to pitch our tents, set up our little site to what we were gonna be, that was gonna be our home, you know, for the next 6 months or so. And you wanna talk about miserable, right? Not having a super cool mission, there as a chemical unit attached to, at the time, 2nd Chem Battalion. We were the reserve unit attached to them, and the stepchildren, obviously, of an active duty organization. We weren't integrated very well, and most of what we did were BS missions. Eventually, got a little recognition with the battalion CSM, and I became part of his PSD team, and I rode around with him and the colonel everywhere they went, which kind of gave me a break from day-to-day life around there. Gate guard, tower guard, you know, burning crap in barrel, like stupidness. Every once in a while we go out, we do some humanitarian aid stuff. We go and clean out caches and things of that nature. We did that quite a few times out in towns. You know, different type of humanitarian services, kind of like a cleanup crew, I guess. But, you know, the threat was still there. There was still, you know, some incoming mortar rounds. There were, you know, small arms fired, little different things that you would, I guess, essentially expect in that type of situation. And, you know, I kind of stayed. I like the PSD work. I like being able to, you know, go out, you know, be all over the place. They were doing what, I didn't know what a KLE was, but that's what they were doing. I was just tagging along. You know, just breaking up the monotony of it. My leadership really didn't like that, because I was always gone. You know, I wasn't there with them sucking, and they kind of put a little squash to all that. But I was trying to go to the board. I was trying to do this and that, and they were running boards out there, and they kept denying me. Now they didn't want me to go out You know, they still don't want me to get promoted. I'm out there, giving 100% of the time, and still not getting any shine with them. And eventually started going bad again. And, it came to the point where I was being defiant, you know, not afraid to admit it, but I was upset. You didn't keep your end of the bargain, and I was going to let you know that wasn't right with me. And, mid tour, it got bad to where the point of leadership couldn't get the soldiers motivated to do anything, and they came to me with hat in hand. Essentially was like, hey, the soldiers, they listen to you, can you help us out? I was like, man, I've heard this before. Absolutely not. Not fucking doing it, right? I'm not helping you. That's your problem, Now, if I was an NCO, it would be my job, right? But as a soldier, I'm just one of the guys. No, I'm not helping. And of course they got mad at that too and whatever. I wasn't really worried about that either because obviously I wasn't getting promoted, Fast forward, it was a shitty deployment, Didn't really learn anything, didn't really gain anything, spent a lot of time away, and honestly, kind of a waste of time. And, on our way back, we eventually left in September of '03. When I got back, I was in active duty mode, right? And there was nothing that was going to get in my way of me returning back to active duty. And, at the time, I told them when we got home, you guys will never see me again. I'm going back active. And they laughed, They were like, you can't. We're not going to release you. But challenge accepted, right? Because nobody's going to tell me no. I'm going to find somebody who's going to tell me yes. And when I got home, I went to, we went back to Tallahassee. And I went and seen the recruiter in Tallahassee. And I was like, look, I just got back from Iraq. I'm in active duty mode. I'm ready to go. And he was like, I need this release form signed and we can get you set up. I was like, what does it consist of? What do I need to do to get released? He was like, I just need a commander's signature here and assumption of command orders to go along with this. I was like, cool, leave it to me. Now, my detachment was in Panama City, right? And the detachment commander at the time was a staff sergeant who was appointed second lieutenant based off his education, right? He, by trade, he was a lawyer, and he was successful. He was a good lawyer, and he wasn't a great leader, but he was a good lawyer, and he tried to take care of people, which is fine. But I called his office and I said, hey, I got some documents I need you to sign, but I need them faxed back, and I can send you the fax information, but I also need assumption of command. And he was like, okay, send it to my secretary and I'll get it done. I was like, I need it back like today. He was like, yeah, I'm fine. I'm busy, but I'll get to it. Okay, cool. I don't know if he read it or not, but when he faxed it back, he faxed it straight to my recruiter, and I was sitting there, so it wasn't even 30 minutes later, this thing was coming back. And he was like, looks legit, good to me. You're released from reserves, and we can sign you up into active duty. And that was that. You know, I left the reserves and we got back in September. I was able to get out of the reserves in late November, early December, signed my contract. And by December, I was on my way to Fort Campbell, Kentucky. And on my way back to active duty. And, you know, this time I knew that when I came back active, I was behind the power curve, you know, because I've been out almost 3 years at this point. So I was very, very motivated to get back and get right. And this is where my journey started to rise, right? Because when I got to Fort Campbell, home of the 101st Airborne Air Assault, I had the most phenomenal leaders I could ask for in the time that I really needed them, you know, and I really don't know if they really knew how much I needed them and what I needed. I really didn't know either, but I knew I had to go, right? I had to, this was my shot. And chapter 3, I'm going to talk about my time there at Fort Campbell and the opportunities that I took, and the opportunities that I was afforded. And this is why I always say, like, if you stay prepared, you never have to get prepared, because when opportunities knock, you got to open the door. And that right there was nothing but doors open for me. So I appreciate you tuning in, listening to my transitioning into the reserves. There was a lot more to that, but I really didn't want to get into the weeds, right? Because just know that, pick your poison, right? And understand that the reserves is not active duty, you know, and you think active duty life is crap, you know, just imagine people who do it part-time, right? Now, I'm not saying not everybody, there are some good ones, but they're far few and in between, and they don't often affect an organization like that. You know, they're usually in the same boat with you. So you'll meet great people, not always great leaders, you know. But I do work with the reserves a lot now in my active component, and I understand their role, you know, and I didn't understand that as a young soldier. But I work really well with the reserve units now and their leadership, and I understand the need and why it's necessary. And, you know, we definitely cross that bridge and close those gaps between Compo 1, Compo 3, as well as Compo 2, the National Guard, right? But there's some good ones out there. So I'm not knocking the reserve. This is just my experience. And it wasn't that great. And my leadership wasn't great, but there were great people there. All right, so chapter 3 is coming, 101st. You're on the mic with me, JD. Let's go.